Welcome. I am Larry Hoy, biker writer legend. Welcome to First Chapter, a podcast where I take the time to introduce you to some wonderful books that you may not have heard before. So, before further ado, let's get on to it. First Chapter. All right, I've got a great story for you today. Today we're breaking into the Fallen World series, putting out by Chris Kennedy Publishing. The Fallen World, its corporations grew and became all powerful, more powerful than the countries they lived in. One corporation ticked off another corporation. Next thing you know, thermonuclear war. So now the world has changed. Think of Mad Max, but add cowboys and samurais and genetic mutations and some lizard people. I'm talking everything is possible in here. And today we're going to go into Revenant by J.P. Chandler. So let's have a look-see on the back. The Eureka bubble is no longer isolated from a world still struggling after the apocalyptic failure of the corporate wars. Regaining contact with the outside communities helped cure the problems of dwindling resources, but it also brought new challenges for the bubblers to overcome. Princess, aka Kelly Anson, has already learned firsthand how dangerous this new reality could be. She barely survived. Recognizing the bubble holds a wealth of resources compared to what the rest of the world, Princess will stop at nothing to protect her home. Enlisting her brother Scott and former Azarian agent Morgan Campbell, she continues to work towards a future where the bubble and its neighbors can embrace life beyond mere survival. But the resources of the bubble make a tempting prize for anyone with the guts and the power to take them. When the princess's father returns with a squad of specialists and con modes and decides he wants the bubble for his own, can Princess and her allies stop them from repeating the mistakes and horrors of the past, or will she just become another victim of the fallen world? Let's get started, shall we? Chapter 1, Etna Village. Kelly, is that guy about to do what I think he is? I looked over to where Scott pointed from the top of his new palisade. We had a good vantage over the city park near the north end of the little town of Etna. At the edge of the pond that dominated the near side of the park, Nicole, the girl I had adopted as a little sister, was treating our horses to a drink. A man stalking through the bushes behind her appeared intent on grabbing her. He didn't seem to be holding a weapon, which spoke volumes about his intent. "That's a bad idea, son," Scott muttered as if talking to the man. "Who is it?" I asked. "I don't recognize him. He must not be from around here." "Do you really think anyone here would try to sneak up on Nicole?" "Fair point," I conceded silently. "Oh shit, there's more of them," Scott warned, pointing. He jumped over the front of the palisade and dashed off, pulling his combat knife as he went. All around the park, men holding weapons moved among the trees and bushes. I paused as the man targeting Nicole pounced from the bushes. She turned before he reached her and gracefully slid into the fighting stance Scott had drilled into her over the past few months. Her movements too quick for the natural human to follow. The calm focus in her face was downright scary as she tensed her muscles in preparation. She sidestepped the charge, grabbed the man's wrist. He screamed as the bone snapped under the power of her genetically enhanced strength, and learned far too late that she was no ordinary girl. Nicole tried to twist his arm behind his back, but his momentum carried him past her until her grip stopped him. She adjusted by adding her other hand to the broken wrist and spun the man into a wide arc before launching the stranger 100 feet into the pond. I could hear Nicole shouting in triumph as I jumped to the ground to follow Scott. Since Scott was skirting the pond to the right, I went to the left. I pulled my knife to match Scott's. "Get the horses! They're bolting!" I shouted to her as I ran. Charging into the trees and bushes, I found a man sneaking around a tree crouching and holding a machete. He only saw me coming at the last second. I interpreted his shout, but not before he got out a warning. I didn't intend to take his head off, but I was moving too fast to care. The attackers were spaced predictably, and I snaked through the trees from one target to the next faster than they could react. Less than a minute later, I watched Scott cut down the last of the creepers near the road opposite the pond. His Christmas morning grin was incongruous under the blood spatter, but not unexpected. "Did you see it? Did you see it?" Nicole gushed as she led the 3 horses over to us, oblivious to their nervous shuffling. "I saw enough," Scott said, grinning even wider. "Looks like the pond wasn't deep enough to save the guy. Well, we've got a floater." "Ooh," Nicole said. "Yeah, gross," I added. "Dude, take the horses back to the compound and tell Rob what happened. Scott and I will see what we can find out about these guys." I counted 15 attackers, including the floater. They were armed with hand weapons of various designs. Some carried bows of respectable workmanship. Hygiene was lacking, but they were otherwise appeared healthy, if a little underweight. I examined a few of the bodies and collected some of the weapons, including a bow of exceptional quality. I fought back a surge of anger as I avoided a body on my way back to Scott. These people had come to take what they couldn't produce themselves. There was almost as many there as there were adult-age residents of Etna. I argued with myself about the residents could have handled the attack without us, but it could never ease the biting fear that some of them probably would have been hurt or killed. "Lighten up, Princess," Scott said. "They could have asked for help or tried to trade. It was their choice to attack. It's not our fault. They were bad at it." I wasn't sure quite what to make of having Scott trying to cheer me up. His chipper tone was about to earn him a very nasty glare. I resisted the urge. I knew exactly what behaving so weird my glare would only fuel his obnoxious cheer. "What did you find?" "Not much. It's not like they..." A scream tore my attention away. Across the street and south of us, a young woman ran out from the trees, shrieking. A group of children followed close behind, with 2 men bringing up the rear. I had my knife out again, ready, conscious of the Kimber safety nestled in the small of my back. These people clearly weren't attacking. They were terrified, but I had little trust of strangers. Lady Cat rounded the tree behind the fleeing people and sauntered across the road. Boredom afflicted every line of her massive, tawny body. The woman leading the group halted sharply at Scott's laughter. She looked at the scattered bodies and then back at us, holding out her hands to signal the children to stop behind her. She shivered in fear. At least she stopped screaming. "She sniffed them out for us," Scott said, still chuckling. "Kitty knows how to make an entrance." "She won't hurt you," I told the group. I noticed another woman among the children and was happy to see there were more adults with them. "Put your weapons on the ground." The 2 men laid down their crude spears they had. "It's not loyalty," Scott interjected. "She just doesn't like the taste of people." His cheery tone didn't reassure the strangers. "Why are you here?" I demanded, trying to ignore Scott's grin. "No reason," one of the men said, moving out into the front of the group. He wanted to indicate the dead attackers. "They were chasing us. They were part of a larger group that attacked our farm a couple of days ago. We've been running and hiding ever since. We don't know anyone there." "So you led them here," I accused to keep him off balance. "Well, not on purpose, I swear. We just didn't know anybody was here," one of the women protested. "Where are you from?" I asked. "Over in Granada," the man answered. "East of here, between Eureka and Wed." "Wed?" "It's a real town," the man said. "I saw the name on a map," I added. "Hey, who are you guys?" Nicole asked, jogging over to stand by Lady Cat, who sat down and leaned her head against the girl. Nicole weighed twice as much as she appeared to, but the lioness still moved her a step. Nicole scratched the cat between the ears. Close behind Nicole, Rob Nielsen arrived with a small group of Etna residents. He held a rifle cradled in his arms. A little over 6 feet tall, he was big enough to intimidate most people. Thanks, Princess, Rob said with genuine relief. Again, you arrived in time and you saved us a lot of ammo. That was the biggest party so far. They didn't have guns, Scott said. Some good steel, though. You have guns? The man with the refugees asked. Scott smirked in response. The young woman walked over and stood next to and slightly behind Rob. She smiled uncertainly and nodded. I haven't seen you before, I asked. I hadn't expected to see a new face. A few months ago, Scott and I, along with Morgan Campbell, had helped rescue the little town of Etna by leading a small community from their compound near the town of Lakeview farther inland. Lakeview had been taken over by a dozen con modes, escaped prisoners who'd received generic modifications like mine. They had divided the city among them and used the people as their subjects, and worse. They had also renamed the town Pringle City after my father. The discussion was unpopular and widely ignored. The new girl had not come from there. This is Mallory, Rob said. She's from up in Yucca. We've been in contact. We saw the fire damage when we passed through last summer, Scott said. The newcomer's proximity to Rob told me the rest of the story, one as common as the fall as it had been in the western frontier 200 years ago. Old enough to have fought in the corporate wars, Rob was a quiet man and hard work and brutal violence. He had proved invaluable in escaping the old compound and resettling Etna. Unbalanced in his new leadership role, but too stubborn to back down from a challenge, he stepped up admirably. Widowed before we met, he'd made a high-value catch for the young woman. I smiled and nodded at the girl to put her at ease. It didn't seem to work. She still looked ready to bolt, uncertain whether it'd be safer to be near Rob's protection or to create as much distance from us as possible. Her reaction was common for the people seeing Tekadine specialists at work for the first time. How many raids have you had? I asked Rob. I wrinkled my nose as the odor from the ex-raiders hit us. I shut down my sense of smell with a thought. The naturals around us weren't so lucky. 3, Rob answered, also wrinkling his nose. But they weren't really raids, just a handful of thieves each time. Nothing like this. The winter chill is settling in and the harvest feels like a long time ago. No longer their problem, Scott quipped from a chuckle. Rob looked askew at Scott's inappropriate comment. That may not work, I said, thinking out loud. There aren't enough people here, and it's too late in the year to move them. My mind raced to filter through possible options. They'll be able to handle it, Scott said. I didn't expect raiding parties this big. I waved at the bodies. A few guns you have here might not have been enough. They could have wiped you out. I will not allow it. What do you want us to do? Sorry. What do you want us to do? Rob asked, standing closer. We need to improve our defenses. I looked up to meet his eyes. Etna can't guard the bubble's back door if we can't protect itself. The palisade's almost finished, Rob explained. Next year, we'll start a better wall. I feel better if we had more people to watch the roads. None of us knew these guys had entered the valley. A good thing we cleaned out the Fort Campbell, Scott said with a smile, nodding at the gathered refugees. They'd be dinner by now. Cannibals? One of the women asked. Is he okay? Rob asked, pointing at Scott. I rolled my eyes in response. There's no more cannibals. They killed them all, Nicole scolded Scott and reassured the woman. Princess, is he going to be like this the whole time? Get used to it, sweetie. Hey, look, Scott said, pointing up at the group. More people, if they're telling the truth. We'll consider it, Rob said. We can't accept just anyone. You don't really need a night watch, mused Scott, his tone for breath. Most people will stick to the roads. Set checkpoints there for now. set daytime watches only. Anyone coming at night or overland shouldn't be a concern. Or there'll be too many of us, or there'll be too many for us to stop, Rob finished the thought. We could probably do that. Set a checkpoint up on Route 3. Looks at east. I'll leave that to you, I said. Will it be enough? More guns? Rob shrugged. Something with good range? I'll do what I can, I said, nodding to myself. Lady Cat let out her growl, a kind of a muted roar, expressing her impatience. Some of the refugees watched her, stiff with fear of the hybrid lioness and possibly the pale-haired adolescent who showed no fear and ran up much too fast. Lady Cat, I replied, you're scaring the new folks. Go find Hope. She'll want to see you. Lady Cat raised her head, her eyes wide and bright, just like they were remembering why she had come. She stood to leave and shook herself vigorously. As she turned to run off, Nicole jumped onto her back, grasped the fur of her neck, and wrapped her legs around her ribs. Lady Cat bolted and wriggled her back into a sinuous movement at the same time. Nicole slid right off the other side and landed awkwardly on the ground. She sat up laughing. She never lets me ride her, Nicole said. Several of the children giggled at her antics. Scott guffawed at Nicole and even pointed. What's wrong with him? Rob asked. Did you break Scott? I looked at Scott expectantly. Chelsea's pregnant, he announced, grinning like an idiot. The congratulations came loud and physical. I stepped out of the way and let my brother take the attention. If you couldn't embrace the fleeting joys, well, there was little point to surviving this fallen world. All right, so that was chapter 1 of Revenant by J.P. Chandler. I'll have the links down below, but I would advise you absolutely pick up this book and the rest of the Fallen World series. There's so much magic and fun in this series. 2 thumbs way up. Anyway, thank you much. I'll see you next week. I am Larry Hoy, biker rider legend, and thank you for stopping by First Chapter. Hope you had a great time. If you too can be a First Chapter book of the week, drop me a message. If you're an author and you've got a book ready to share, drop me a message. I'd love to read it. And if I haven't met your favorite author yet, introduce me. My goodness. I could also use your support. Go to Amazon and pick up the Hit World book series, especially the Sweetwater Chronicles. The newest book, Boom Boom, Demon's Kiss, is out now. Try it out there. I would love to see it. Drop your review on Amazon. Appreciate it. And I will see you all next week.